Hello and welcome to another Lamp Bible Study. My name is James and I will continue to be your host of Lamp Bible Study. And again, we are in the book of Deuteronomy, and thank you very much once again for joining me on another Lamp Bible Study. I'm currently reading from an NIV Collegiate Bible, and we are again in Deuteronomy chapter 21, and we are still with Moses, who is going to hand off his leadership over to Joshua. So let's get right started today and see what wisdom we can find in the Word. Atonement for an unsolved murder. If a man is found slain, lying in a field in the land the Lord your God is giving you to possess, and it is not known who killed him, your elders and judges shall go out and measure the distance from the body to the neighboring towns. Then the elders of the town nearest the body shall take a heifer that has never been worked and has never worn a yoke, and lead her down to a valley that has not been plowed or planted, and where there is a flowing stream. There in the valley they are to break the heifer's neck. The priests, the sons of Levi, shall step forward, for the Lord your God has chosen them to minister and to pronounce blessings in the name of the Lord, and to decide all cases of dispute and assault. Then all the elders of the town nearest the body shall wash their hands over the heifer whose neck was broken in the valley, and they shall declare, our hands did not shed this blood, nor did our eyes see it done. Accept this atonement for your people Israel, whom you have redeemed, O Lord, and do not hold your people guilty of the blood of an innocent man, and the bloodshed will be atoned for. So you will purge from yourselves the guilt of shedding innocent blood, since you have done what is right in the eyes of the Lord. So once again, we're in the Old Testament with Moses, and this is back during the law, and the Lord was residing with the people of Israel. And so in order to make sure that they were clean, make sure that they were free of sin, they had to follow all the directions and the guidance that the Lord had brought and given to them. Let's continue to read. Marrying a captive woman. When you go to war against your enemies and the Lord your God delivers them into your hands and you take captives, if you notice among the captives a beautiful woman and are attracted to her, you may take her as your wife, bring her into your home, and have her shave her head, trim her nails, and put aside the clothes she was wearing when captured. After she has lived in your house and mourned her father and mother for a full month, then you may go to her and be her husband, and she shall be your wife. If you are not pleased with her, let her go wherever she wishes. You must not sell her or treat her as a slave, since you have dishonored her. So this is very interesting. This is talking about going to war, part of the spoils of war, not necessarily spoils because this is a person, and it's speaking about if a man finds an attractive woman and she would be have to basically conform to be allowed in society in Israel. And so that is a guidance during the law that was given to the men and the fighters who would go out and do battle for Israel. And it says a lot, though. It also says about not treating the woman as disrespectful either. It's showing that if the man chose not to have her, he couldn't sell her. He would just let her go on her way. So it just is a reminder that once again, Israel were slaves in Egypt, and so it's just a reminder that those ideas that they may have when it comes to conquering other nations and such as enslavement or having many wives in this case, was not a good thing. It was warned against, not to dishonor the woman that he saw was attractive, and if he wanted her, then she could conform, and he could then take her as a wife, or he would have to let her go. How does that make you feel? What kind of thoughts or feelings come to mind? We just started reading, and we're already reading about marrying a captive woman. So, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to mind for you? How does it make you feel? If you were back then, if you were in that time, how would it make you feel? And what would it make you think? Let's continue to read. The right of the firstborn. If a man has two wives, and he loves one but not the other, and both bear him sons, but the firstborn is the son of the wife he does not love, when he wills his property to his sons, he must not give the rights of the firstborn to the son of the wife he loves in preference to his actual firstborn, the son of the wife he does not love. He must acknowledge the son of his unloved wife as the firstborn by giving him a double share of all he has. That son is the first sign of his father's strength. The right of the firstborn belongs to him. So this has happened, we know of this happening. And so throughout even the well-known names of Israel. So this is direction as in to not have that. This is something that happens when a man ends up marrying more than one person and then loving one wife over another and having children and then trying not to follow the right of the firstborn because he has favorites. This reminds me of a lot. And I bet it does to you too. If you may know where I'm going with this. So for me, even in my family and lots of other families, we as children or people as parents or we as parents tend to somewhat may have a favorite child, one that either reflects you or you understand more maybe than others. And you could be accused of having a favorite child or be accused of being the favorite child. It could be because of relationship wise, whether that's mother, son, mother, daughter, father, son, father, daughter. It could be just because you get along, you understand that person more compared to another one of your children or another one of your parents. I'm trying to go back at it from both ways, being a child or being a parent. So in child, you could be whatever age. You have parents, you have a parent or you have parents. And so it comes to mind that to this day, it can happen. We're all human, but it's somewhat unfortunate because the reaction that you get out of another child or a parent compared to that person who's favored, it may be different and it may feel different and it may look different to other people who are not the favorite. So this right here, it shows us this type of idea, this type of thing goes all the way back to the Old Testament. And it reminds me of something that I always say, there's nothing new under the sun. And that's very similar to a saying that's in the Bible. A lot of things have happened. Anything that you can think of has happened. Anything. And thus there's nothing new that the Lord hasn't seen already. It may look different to us, but we're not timeless. Whereas the Lord God, Jesus, is timeless. So he's seen it all. And so this is direction to make sure that the right of the firstborn continued correctly in line. And how does that make you feel? Are you a firstborn, or do you know of a firstborn? What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? And what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. A rebellious son. If a man has a stubborn and rebellious son who does not obey his father and mother and will not listen to them when they discipline him, his father and mother shall take hold of him and bring him to the elders at the gate of his town. They shall say to the elders, "This son of ours is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey us. He is a profligate and drunkard." It was split up. Profligate and drunkard. Then all the men of his town shall stone him to death. You must purge the evil from among you. All Israel will hear of it and be afraid. So this is, for me, this is in regards to when Israel, again, the law and living with the Lord, and a rebellious and stubborn son, a rebellious son, son that, is born into Israel, but is not a believer, didn't conform, did not understand or want to understand that the Lord is God, and is stubborn, and it's rebellious and is sinful. And so the result would be, after, I'm sure, many trials of discipline, as it says, and will not listen to them when they discipline him, both his father and his mother will take him to the elders at the gate, and then, due to the stubbornness and the rebellious nature of this person, it was to stone him, because they were to purge the evil among them. So imagine how difficult that could also be, being a father or mother. And, experiences today. One thing that came in my mind while I was reading it, I don't know why, was instances of the show, on TV. What is it? That TV show, Jerry Springer. And so, as one of those shows, and that there was a couple other shows that came to mind, like court related cases and such, court TV and such, but things where you would see something of a rebellious child or something. And so nowadays, it's as provided as form of entertainment in some ways, strange, but it's also something that, some people do seek help through going to counselors and such. People go through programs. They get help, they get assistance when it comes to discipline. They have meetings and counseling sessions, but that was one thing that came to mind when I was reading this, because it almost, due to the easiness of media, social media, TV, streaming, it's easy to see examples of this. And so, of just rebellion. And so that's what came to mind when I was reading this as an example. What kind of thoughts or things came to your mind when you were reading this? Something in your own family, something in your past, even. I know at times when I was growing up, I felt like my parents thought maybe I was a rebellious child. I don't understand the logistics of it, of course, because in my own eyes, and this is, I'm not trying to be someone who is, because I'm definitely not a saint. I am definitely a sinner, but uh, in my own eyes, I didn't think that I was doing much wrong, but it also is that fear of a parent. So I may have not thought that I was doing wrong or thinking wrong or whatever the case may be, but there were signs maybe or something that I was doing or reading or saying that brought on signs of a rebellious nature or something. And so, or just fear. And so some parents have to take action. They take action. They don't may not have to take action, but they take action. And in a lot of cases, I thank my parents, because without my parents, I don't know when I would have been directed to the Lord's house. When I don't know when I would have been directed to follow the Lord. And so I do thank them for one of those, for something in life as a goal for a parent, as a child, to show someone and offer them knowledge of who Jesus is, of who the Lord our Savior is. And so that's an accomplishment. That is the accomplishment when it comes to life. you know so what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Various laws. If a man guilty of a capital offense is put to death and his body is hung on a tree, you must not leave his body on the tree overnight. Be sure to bury him that same day, because anyone who is hung on a tree is under God's curse. You must not desecrate the land the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance. Remember this portion. Be sure to bury him that same day, because anyone who is hung on a tree is under God's curse. And that you must not desecrate the land the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance. Remember that, because it's going to come up in other places in the Bible, and there's a specific place that it's going to come up. So that's one of those things that write it down, take note of it, take mental note, but really think about that and why that's said. And that is mentioned in other places of the Bible, and we'll go through that once we go through those passages. If you see your brother's ox or sheep straying, do not ignore it, but be sure to take it back to him. If the brother does not live near you, or if you do not know who he is, take it home with you and keep it until he comes looking for it. Then give it back to him. Do the same if you find your brother's donkey or his cloak or anything he loses. Do not ignore it. If you see your brother's donkey or his ox fallen on the road, do not ignore it. Help him get it to its feet. A woman must not wear men's clothing, nor a man wear women's clothing, for the Lord your God detests anyone who does this. If you come across a bird's nest beside the road, either in a tree or on the ground, and the mother is sitting on the young or on the eggs, do not take the mother with the young. You may take the young, but be sure to let the mother go, so that it may go well with you and you may have a long life. When you build a new house, make a parapet around your roof, so that you may not bring the guilt of bloodshed on your house if someone falls from the roof. Do not plant two kinds of seed in your vineyard. If you do, not only the crops you plant, but also if you do, not only the crops you plant, but also the fruit of the vineyard will be defiled. Do not plow with an ox and a donkey yoked together. Do not wear clothes of wool and linen woven together. Make tassels on the four corners of the cloak you wear. So more directions, more things to look at during the time of the law. And the time that the Lord was residing with the people. So these were directions for them to be sinless and to represent a holy people. And as we know, this is why we need Jesus. Because people, no matter what, so some will take passages, especially in the Old Testament, and say that they are set as stone. These are items that we look towards to be holy, yes. However, we all fall short. People tend to believe themselves as, I can follow what I'm reading, what I'm looking at, and I can follow it to the T. But they're incorrect, because even a thought is sin. So a thought of wrongdoing, or a thought of lust, a thought of gluttony, a thought of harming someone for no reason, all of those things are sin. So it also leads us to what we need, what we had to have in order to be saved. We have the faith, and that faith relies in our Savior, Jesus. And so more of that to come as we continue to read and seek God's wisdom. How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? If you lived back then, if you lived back during that time, during Moses' time, and you heard this information, how would it make you feel, and what would it make you think? How can you think about things that are of even today, like as in planting vineyards and planting seeds next to each other? Do we even follow those ideas? Scientifically, we look at science, which is just wisdom. It's just wisdom that the Lord provides us. But some plants can't be placed together, and over time we learn that. But at the same time, we still plant different plants, sometimes together, and sometimes they grow in different seasons. Let's continue to read. Marriage violations. If a man takes a wife and after lying with her, dislikes her and slanders her and gives her a bad name, saying, I married this woman, but when I approached her, I did not find proof of her virginity, then the girl's father and mother shall bring proof that she was a virgin to the town elders at the gate. The girl's father will say to the elders, I gave my daughter in marriage to this man, but he dislikes her. Now he has slandered her and said, I did not find your daughter to be a virgin. But here's the proof of my daughter's virginity. Then her parents shall display the cloth before the elders of the town, and the elders shall take the man and punish him. They shall fine him 100 shekels of silver and give them to the girl's father, because this man has given an Israelite virgin a bad name. She shall continue to be his wife. He must not divorce her as long as he lives. If, however, the charge is true, and no proof of the girl's virginity can be found, she shall be brought to the door of her father's house, and there the men of the town shall stone her to death. She has done a disgraceful thing in Israel by being promiscuous while still in her father's house. You must purge the evil from among you. Again, this is during the time of the law, and for the people to be holy and live with the Lord, live amongst the Lord. And this is also showing that there was protection, for a woman, because if a man just didn't like her for whatever reason after he married her, he couldn't just dump her. And then he couldn't just make up something completely out of thin air. He had to have a reason, a specific reason. And then if he was found out to be a slanderer, made up a false story, then of course he should be punished for it. And so that goes to show, it tells us that they had directions and they were to follow these directions. Let's continue to read. If a man is found sleeping with another man's wife, both the man who slept with her and the woman must die. You must purge the evil from Israel. If a man happens to meet in a town a virgin pledged to be married and he sleeps with her, you shall take both of them to the gate of that town and stone them to death. The girl because she was in a town and did not scream for help, and the man because he violated another man's wife. You must purge the evil from among you. But if out in the country a man happens to meet a girl pledged to be married and rapes her, only the man who has done this shall die. Do nothing to the girl. She has committed no sin, deserving death. This case is like that of someone who attacks and murders his neighbor. For the man found the girl out in the country, and though the betrothed girl screamed, there was no one to rescue her. If a man happens to meet a virgin who is not pledged to be married and rapes her and they are discovered, he shall pay the girl's father 50 shekels of silver. He must marry the girl, for he has violated her. He can never divorce her as long as he lives. A man is not to marry his father's wife. He must not dishonor his father's bed. And there you have it. Lots of instructions, things to follow. Do some of these, are some of these part of social norms today, even? Again, I always say the Bible, everything in the Bible is past, present, and future, and a lot of things, such as laws and culture-wise, we get straight from what it was like in the past, right out of the Bible. And so, are there things and thoughts and feelings that came to your mind of similarities or things that you can think of that explain why things are as of today? How does it make you feel? And what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Exclusion from the assembly. I can just tell you, Deuteronomy is very meaty, as in there's a lot of information, obviously, in here. There's a lot of information in the Bible as a whole. And so sometimes in passages and parts of the Bible, there's quite a bit. And so we have to take a moment. And if you need to take a moment to step back and reread a passage or two, by all means do so. Let's continue to read. No one who has been emasculated by crushing or gutting may enter the assembly of the Lord. No one born of a forbidden marriage, nor any of his descendants may enter the assembly of the Lord, even down to the 10th generation. No Ammonite or Moabite or any of his descendants may enter the assembly of the Lord, even down to the 10th generation. For they did not come to meet you with bread and water on your way when you came out of Egypt. And they hired Balaam, son of Beor, from Pethor in Aram Naharaim, to pronounce a curse on you. However, the Lord your God would not listen to Balaam, but turned the curse into a blessing for you, because the Lord your God loves you. Do not seek a treaty of friendship with them as long as you live. So remember, Balaam sought out Balak to put a curse on Israel, and he was seeking out someone of divination, witchcraft, and sorcery that spoke to spirits and such. And guess what? Balak ended up speaking to actual God, and then not only that, but providing a prophecy that is still to this day believed as something that goes to Jesus and then beyond. Now, Jesus is eternal. I'm not saying beyond Jesus. I'm saying beyond. So Jesus born, Jesus died, Jesus is in heaven, and he's alive. I'm talking about all the way to the end of time, where Jesus returns and becomes the King, the eternal King for us all. And so, right here, there he's reminding the people, he's reminding Israel, he's reminding Joshua that they are God's people and they will not be cursed. They are blessed. And over again, it says whether they deserved it, if they earned the blessing. It was a promise that the Lord had made to their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So it says a lot. Do not abhor an Edomite, for he is your brother. Do not abhor an Egyptian, because you lived as an alien in his country. The third generation of children born to them may enter the assembly of the Lord. So right there it tells us that, again, do not abhor an Egyptian because you lived as an alien in his country. The third generation of children born to them may enter the assembly of the Lord. It's telling, once again, reminder, you were once an alien. And so don't treat aliens as property, as they're not a person, that there's something lower than a person, that they're a slave or an outcast. Don't treat someone that you don't know that way. For one, you never know, because what we're going to learn is people that they don't know, people that are not a part of the community of Israel, that they don't think, worship, or know the Lord, that they're going to come across them as an alien. Israel's going to come across these people, and those aliens, those people, are going to help them in ways they never could obtain. They never. It's going to be the Lord showing just that the Lord can utilize anyone. So how does that make you feel? And what does that make you think? I'm going to pause for just a second. Okay. Some technical difficulties with my phone. It happens. Let's continue to read. Uncleanness in the camp. When you are encamped against your enemies, keep away from everything impure. If one of your men is unclean because of a nocturnal emission, he is to go outside the camp and stay there. But as evening approaches, he is to wash himself, and at sunset he may return to the camp. A designated place outside the camp where you can go to relieve yourself. As part of your equipment, have something to dig with you. And when you relieve yourself, dig a hole and cover up your excrement. For the Lord your God moves about in your camp to protect you and to deliver your enemies to you. Your camp must be holy, so that he will not see among you anything indecent and turn away from you. So, he knows that we are human, and he knows that we have to do 1 and 2. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Laws and directions about 1 and 2 are in the Bible. The Lord knows we're human. The Lord made us. He knows what we have to do, So when we have to do 1 and 2, there's a place outside of the camp, and that's where you do it. And you're to make sure, cover it up. And so, because you want to make sure that the camp looks nice, clean, and tidy at all times, because the Lord goes to and from. He goes and he's with them, and he is there to protect them. And so they're to be holy, and they are to look holy. And that comes with cleanness as well. Sanitization. I can't say that word. So it's interesting, right? Think about that. Gives you some thoughts, some feelings. Let's continue to read. Miscellaneous Laws. If a slave has taken refuge with you, do not hand him over to his master. Let him live among you wherever he likes, and in whatever town he chooses. Do not oppress him, No Israelite man or woman is to become a shrine prostitute. You must not bring the earnings of a female prostitute or a male prostitute into the house of the Lord your God to pay any vow, because the Lord your God detests them. Two things. The slave enters Israel there to allow the slave to live among them as someone who's another person who is free and not to be oppressed. Next thing, look what this just talked about. And this is again the time of the law, and this is the time that the Lord was living with Israel. A man and woman prostitute. It wasn't just talking about a woman prostitute, it said a man and a woman prostitute shall not be, their earnings shall not be utilized, and is to be, and neither prostitute man or woman is to become a shrine prostitute. Because into the house of the Lord your God to pay any vow, because the Lord your God detests them both. Talks about it right there. And so both those things, if you were in the time, once again, if you were in the time during Moses and the law, how would you feel about these things? As we can see, there's nothing new under the sun when it comes to people and their actions. And we'll learn later on why we need Jesus. And so what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind, and how does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Do not charge your brother interest, whether on money or food or anything else that may earn interest. You may charge a foreigner interest, but not a brother Israelite, so that the Lord your God may bless you in everything you put your hand to in the land you are entering to possess. If you make a vow to the Lord your God, do not be slow to pay it, for the Lord your God will certainly demand it of you, and you will be guilty of sin. But if you refrain from making a vow, you will not be guilty. Whatever your lips utter, you must be sure to do, because you made your vow freely to the Lord your God with your own mouth. Remember this portion as well. This is spoken of multiple times and in a very similar way. It's talking about our vow, our vow to do something. If you say you're going to do something, then do it. And let your yeses be yeses and your no be no's. But if you vow to do something, make sure you think about that vow first. Make sure you think about all the actions and the reactions and the consequences of that action or that vow, because it's telling the wisdom right here is telling us, and it'll tell us multiple times, to be careful to make a vow. It's okay to make a vow. It's absolutely okay to make a vow. However, you don't want to make a vow and not go through with it. So it's one of those, for me, it's like a think before you speak, think before you act, think before you, act and do. And really actually think. Not only do you think about it, but you go to the Lord. You go to the Lord about it. You ask. And you may get an answer immediately, or you may not. That means you may have to be patient. And patience is patience. It's whatever time it takes before you'll get an answer or before you get to take an action. I say pray about it. Think about it, pray about it, and give it to God. So that's going to come up multiple times throughout the Bible about vows. Can you think of any examples or anything that's happened in your life when it comes to making a vow? One thing literally that just came into my mind was marriage. Marriage is a vow. It's to live with someone until death do you part. And I know in society today we have things of divorce. And those are things that are marriages talked about in the Bible in multiple areas. And so a vow is a vow, though. It's just things to think about. So vows are actions, vows can be words, but vows can also be relationships. The Bible's full of wisdom and knowledge. Read it. And pray for understanding. Again, any thoughts or feelings that come to mind for you? Let's continue to read. If you enter your neighbor's vineyard, you may eat all the grapes you want, but do not put any in your basket. If you enter your neighbor's grain field, you may pick kernels with your hands, but you must not put a sickle to his standing grain. For me, it's like being a glutton. You know, you're allowed to eat what you want to eat, what you can eat that day, because you may be hungry. And it's okay. Everybody, it happens to everybody. You know, especially if you're traveling, or especially if you're out and about and you get really hungry, because taking a few here and there is over a massive amount of, remember, the Lord's blessing them. So when they farm and when they grow these things, it's in abundance. It's more than they ever needed. It's a surplus. Even with people coming along and walking along the road and maybe eating every now and then is not going to do anything to the abundance of produce. But this is just more information. For me, it's more information as to avoid gluttony, you know, to avoid overly taking more than you need, especially at that time. So it's just things to think about and look at. Let's continue to read. If a man marries a woman who becomes displeasing to him because he finds something indecent about her, and he writes her a certificate of divorce, gives it to her, and sends her from his house, and if after she leaves his house she becomes the wife of another man, and her second husband dislikes her, and writes her a certificate of divorce, gives it to her, and sends her from his house, or if he dies, then her first husband, who divorced her, is not allowed to marry her again after she has been defiled. That would be detestable in the eyes of the Lord. Do not bring sin upon the land the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance. Another thing. So, man and woman marry. And it talks about, again, it's going to talk about this everywhere, because man and woman marry, they become one flesh. And then, but in this case, he already knows, the Lord already knows that man is man, and Israel's no exception. And so he's providing them additional information as to what they would need to do. Whether it's, we'll talk about more about this later, because Jesus himself will address this later on. But think about it. Think about it, how it fits in even as of today in culture and society around the world. It's things to think about. That's what Bible study is. It's seeking the wisdom and things to think about. How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. If a man has recently married, he must not be sent to war or have any other duty laid on him. For 1 year, he is to be free to stay at home and bring happiness to the wife he has married. Very interesting. Do not take a pair of millstones, not even the upper one, as security for a debt, because that would be taking a man's livelihood as security. If a man is caught kidnapping one of his brother Israelites and treats him as a slave or sells him, the kidnapper must die. You must purge the evil from among you. In cases of disease, be very careful to do exactly as the priests who are Levites instruct you. You must follow carefully what I have commanded them. Remember what the Lord your God did to Miriam along the way after you came out of Egypt. Quick pause. Miriam is the sister of Aaron, and her and Aaron went against Moses because Moses married the woman later in life, and they didn't like her for whatever reason. And some people believe it was a sign of racism as well, because the woman was maybe of a different complexion, or looked differently, or was just different. And so Miriam was punished. She ended up having skin disease. And then Moses intervened. Moses went to the Lord for them so that they wouldn't have a lifelong punishment. And so, but Miriam was still punished for it. And so this is a reminder of that. Think before you speak. Think about your actions and give it to God. When you make a loan of any kind to your neighbor, do not go into his house to get what he is offering as a pledge. Stay outside and let the man to whom you are making the loan bring the pledge out to you. If the man is poor, do not go to sleep with his pledge in your possession. Return his cloak to him by sunset, so that he may sleep in it. Then he will thank you, and it will be regarded as a righteous act in the sight of the Lord your God. So basically, it's similar to like any type of person. They're basically that person that is giving, for the loan, they're giving them the clothes off their back, and the person who is obtaining the loan is those clothes are to return it by nightfall so that person can sleep. It's an honorable thing, because we are to look at life as life isn't really fair. But when you walk the way, the blessings are plenty, are abundant, and go above and beyond. And so even though that person loaned and didn't get much in return, and then gave back what they were given for that loan, it was to show righteousness. It was to show that that person was following the way, and they would be blessed. It tells us a lot about even ourselves. Remember, we can use these words, we can use this information with our lives today. Do we do that as a person? Do you do that? Do that? Do I do that? Do I just loan or give? Do I give freely and willingly when asked? Do you give freely and willingly when asked? Sometimes you see that person on the street corner with a sign, "Please help." Do you think about it? Or do they become invisible? And I know there's many of shows and media shows and news stories about that, how sometimes people can become invisible due to complete ignoring. Some people think that others deserve to be in the position that they're in. Some people think that that person may have created it, or they're lying about their situation. Those are things to think about. And when those type of thoughts or feelings come into your mind, question those thoughts or feelings. Occasionally it may be right, but how you would know is by seeking the Lord and giving it to God and letting Him give you that spirit, letting Him give you that relief. Because let me tell you, when you do it, you'll know. So instead of driving past that person, you give it to God and you think, and the Lord speaks to you, or you get that feeling that you're at peace, that you magically have a few bucks in your car and you hand it to the person, or you're at peace with driving by, unfortunately. That may be the case because maybe there is some ill will there that person is. There's stories about that where people request, whether they're on the corner or they set up some type of GoFundMe account, and they are fraudulent. They're not truthful. So it's, more things to think about. How a lot of this relates to us today. How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Do not take advantage of a hired man who is poor and needy, whether he is a brother Israelite or an alien living in one of your towns. Pay him his wages each day before sunset, because he is poor and is counting on it. Otherwise, he may cry to the Lord against you, and you will be guilty of sin. Any thoughts or feelings on that? I have tons. It happens to this day. Inflation, stagnant wages not matching what's going on in the world. And then you have people buying planets. It's just like, but it's all this is in here, all of it. Everything that man can think of is in the Bible. Let's continue to read. Fathers shall not be put to death for their children, nor children put to death for their fathers. Each is to die for his own sin. Do not deprive the alien or the fatherless of justice, or take the cloak of the widow as a pledge. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you from there. That is why I command you to this day, that is why I command you to do this. When you are harvesting in your field and you overlook a sheaf, do not go back to get it. Leave it for the alien, the fatherless, and the widow, so that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. When you beat the olives from your trees, do not go over the branches a second time. Leave what remains for the alien, the fatherless, and the widow. When you harvest the grapes in your vineyard, do not go over the vines again. Leave what remains for the alien, the fatherless, and the widow. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt. That is why I command you to do this. So he's telling the community, the reason why, again, like I was mentioning earlier, the reason why you're not to glean is because it will be a blessing to others. You're already blessed. You are already blessed. So be a blessing to others. Think about that. Think about that in your life. How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Other examples of that you can provide in your life, currently or in the past, or maybe even in the future, that you hope to be able to provide for people willingly? Let's continue to read. When men have a dispute, they are to take it to court, and the judges will decide the case, acquitting the innocent and condemning the guilty. If the guilty man deserves to be beaten, the judge shall make him lie down and have him flogged in his presence with the number of lashes his crime deserves. But he must not give him more than 40 lashes. If he is flogged more than that, your brother will be degraded in your eyes. Do not muzzle an ox while it is treading out the grain. If brothers are living together and one of them dies without a son, his widow must not marry outside the family. Her husband's brother shall take her and marry her and fulfill the duty of a brother-in-law to her. The first son she bears shall carry on the name of the dead brother, so that his name will not be blotted out from Israel. However, if a man does not want to marry his brother's wife, she shall go to the elders at the town gate and say, my husband's brother refuses to carry on his brother's name in Israel. He will not fulfill the duty of a brother-in-law to me. Then the elders of his town shall summon him and talk to him. If he persists in saying, I do not want to marry her, his brother's widow shall go up to him in the presence of the elders, take off one of his sandals, spit in his face, and say, this is what is done to the man who will not build up his brother's family line. That man's line shall be known in Israel as the family of the unsandaled. If two men are fighting and the wife of one of them comes to rescue her husband from his assailant, and she reaches out and seizes him by his private parts, you shall cut off her hand. Show her no pity. Oh. I immediately had a memory. When I was young, I tried to, okay, I know this is going to sound just weird and silly, but I thought I could jump very, very far. And so me and the kids in the neighborhood would have jumping contests. And of course, I was the person that could jump the longest and the furthest. And so we have these things called boom bats, which were just really big fat bats. And they weren't hollow. They weren't, not hollow. They weren't clear plastic. Like, I know there was another type of boom bats in the 2000s. I'm talking older than that. They were of a beige color, if you know what I'm talking about. And so they were pretty fat, and we would use them as markers, distance markers, while they were on the ground. We would space them on a driveway and jump over them. And one time I tried to jump over them, and I don't know how, but my foot caught one end and the bat tilted up, and I landed a certain way that I was screaming higher than Mariah Carey. I will eventually went to the hospital. So it gets me, and she reaches out and seizes him by his private parts. Both men and women, our private parts are very sensitive. I'm going to leave it at that. Any thoughts or feelings for you? Let's continue to read. Do not have two differing weights in your bag, one heavy, one light. Do not have two differing measures in your house, one large, one small. You must have accurate and honest weights and measures so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. For the Lord your God detests anyone who does these things, anyone who deals dishonestly. Remember what the Amalekites did to you along the way when you came out of Egypt. When you were weary and worn out, they met you on your journey and cut off all who were lagging behind. They had no fear of God. When the Lord your God gives you rest from all the enemies around you, in the land he is giving you to possess as an inheritance, you shall blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget. So, the previous story, I'm fine. Everything ended up fine. I did get some pain medication. But do not forget. So he's telling them over and over again, all of these stories, just to remind them over and over again what they need to do. And we're going to see if this repetition actually works. Let's do a quick review. So we started out with chapter 21, atonement for an unsolved murder. We talked about how they were to bring a heifer out of town and slaughter it as the atonement for an unsolved murder, marrying a captive woman, how a woman could be married if they were in war and someone saw a beautiful woman and he can marry her, but he wasn't to treat her as property, because if he didn't want to marry her, then she was to be let go. The right of the firstborn. We talked about how, even with families as of today, it could be looked at as favorites, and to not go over the firstborn and the right of and their inheritance, making sure that all Israel was following along exactly how the law was written and how directions were applied. A rebellious son. We talked about how a stubborn and rebellious son would be disciplined, but if discipline did not help, then he would be taken in front of the elders and he may be stoned. The various laws. We went over various laws, including the seeds, planting vineyards, not ignoring someone else's ox that may have stumbled on the road. We also went over marriage violations when it comes to a man being married to a woman, because it's intended to be lifelong, because they are supposed to become one flesh. And what could happen if a man were to lie to try to get away from his wife. Exclusion from the assembly. We talked about the people who were forbidden to enter into the Lord's assembly because they were part of a people who tried to put a curse on Israel. The uncleanness in the camp, we talked about, interestingly enough, number 1 and number 2, if you understand what I mean. We talked about not taking advantage of people, paying them what they're due, loaning, and how to be righteous and return things when you're helping someone. We also talked about disputes, and we also talked about how Moses was reminding them that they were once too slaves in Egypt and how they are now free, and that they need to treat the alien with respect, and they also need to uphold these laws and regulations and rules, because the Lord is providing for them. The Lord is with them, and the Lord's providing for them. And this is for them to be and remaining to be holy for the Lord. So that concludes today's Bible study. Thank you once again for joining me in another Lamp Bible study. I do post Lamp Bible studies every Tuesday and Thursdays, as well as highlights. And as of this video, there should already be flashlights, either daily or every couple of days. Not quite sure how those are going to go just yet, because I still haven't posted one as of right now, but this video will be shown in a couple of weeks, so they should have already been posted. I have lots going on, and I thank you very much for joining me. I hope we continue to see God's wisdom together. I hope these Bible studies help in any kind of way, or at least get you to think, get you to be able to listen to or read the portions of the Bible that we do go over. So once again, thank you. Please continue to pray for me. I will continue to pray for you. And wherever you are, have a blessed morning, a blessed day, a blessed afternoon, a blessed evening, a blessed night. God bless.